Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. I think one of the toughest businesses to build and grow is in beauty, spa, wellness, these types of businesses. And I'll tell you why. Because there is so much reliance on the owner, and there's so much that you have to do to truly empower staff to work with you. And if you're in these industries, I know you get this. I've worked with dozens of them before, and I know that this is a big challenge, but also a very rewarding one, because a lot of the times you can truly see the work that you've done on the face of your client. And it's so exciting. You actually get to produce something, make someone feel good, empower them, and do all of these things. But it is a tough business to run. And I've seen the back ends of it. And that's why on this show today, I'm inviting Emily Kendel, who is an expert in med spas. She actually ran her own med spa, and after many lessons learned, now coaches other owners how to avoid the mistakes that she and her team learned as they built their business. She has over 22 years of experience in the beauty industry, and she started as a licensed esthetician before working her way up to becoming a celebrity makeup artist for TV and film. Her passion is to help esthetician-owned medical spas make strategic decisions and craft business plans that actually work. I'm really excited to welcome her onto the show today to discuss this industry and specifically talk about how we can empower staff and we can utilize top talent to grow our businesses. Hey, Emily, welcome to Keep What You Earn. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. Could you just introduce yourself real quick to everybody listening and let them know who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Emily Kendel, an aesthetic business coach. I founded Spa Project, which is an aesthetic business coaching program and company. So thanks for having me on here.
Of course. And as with any business, we have a lot of specialty providers. We have a lot of professionals who serve particular specialty businesses or certain industry niches. But the concepts we talk about in these episodes are always universally applicable. But it's so interesting to have a unique case study, example, and story to tell from the perspective of a particular type of business. And this is no exception. So could you just kind of give our audience a little bit of an overview on why you serve med spa owners and a bit of your history as to how you became passionate about serving them?
Absolutely. So I've been an esthetician for close to 22 years now. And early on in my career, I had a really successful brow business and then kind of shifted into makeup. Got to work with some awesome celebrity makeup artists like Morgan Freeman, Jeff Foxworthy, Priscilla Presley. So it was a really cool experience. At the same time, I had two little girls. I was a single mom. And, it was really hard. I wanted to be there for them, after school and at night. And in the production world, that just doesn't really happen. So I got back into the med spa full time and eventually opened up my own aesthetic studio. And it was like the most awesome thing ever. It was like my pride and joy having this business. And I quickly realized how much I loved business. And that's where the passion came from, especially during the struggles of the business. That's where it kind of came out and started learning lots and lots and lots. So that's that in a nutshell, know.
And could you just unpack a couple of the struggles that you encountered? Because I imagine going through those struggles, seeing through the solutions and what you learned is a lot of what you're teaching your clients today.
Yes. So at the time, there was a big cash flow issue that I didn't really realize until later on. But at the time, there was a lot of uncertainty and a big lack of the right support to help me make decisions in my business. And it all really kind of stemmed because of the cash flow issue. We had lots and lots of customers, but I wanted to grow the business and I just didn't have the resources available to put more into it for what it needed.
So you mentioned a cash flow issue, which is something that most listeners know that I'm super passionate about because that's what we talk about a lot here. based on everything that you encountered, what led you to find a passion in serving other entrepreneurs, other med spa owners, and helping them avoid those situations? Was it kind of out of a, hey, I made these mistakes and I want you to learn from them? Do you serve more than just med spa owners? Just tell us a little bit about how you've used your experience in serving your current clients.
Yeah, so I've helped a few other business owners, but I kind of at the place where I'm at right now in my life, I want to stick with what I know, and that is the industry, and I love the industry. It's been really, really good to me. At the time, I had this cash flow issue, and it was mostly based around retail. My schedule was booked. All the girls that worked for me, their schedules were booked with services all day long. And at the time, $20,000 worth of inventory, and we couldn't keep it on the shelf. And, financially at home, we were, just really tight. We had 4 children at the time. And, my husband wasn't wanting me to put extra money into the business. And I said, okay. And so I did what I could, and I scrapped as best as I could. And because of the struggle, and I knew that I needed to invest more into the business, it had me looking in other areas to figure out how to make money. And so I took my focus off of what I knew and started putting my focus into things that I had no business, like, different types of brands that I brought in, doing a little bit of consignment with some bridal accessories because of my neighbor and a bad advice from someone. And I realized what was going on was I was seeking support because I didn't have it. I was getting advice and support from, my husband, family members, other friends who didn't have business experience in what I did. And then the advice I was getting, it wasn't benefiting me. I realized it was benefiting other people. And so what happened was I just realized how important it was for me to have the right kind of support. And I wanted to do that for other people. Business ownership can be very lonely. And, there's a lot of decisions to be made. Who should I hire next? Should I invest my money into marketing? Should I buy the big piece of equipment, or buy a new skincare brand? And those are really big decisions to make. And it's hard to do that by yourself sometime and just pull the gun and go for it. And I want to be that person, especially with all the experience I have, just for you to be like, hey, Emily, what do you think about this? And let's really break it down and see if it makes sense for you. And in what step, because you can say yes to all those things, but should we do them all right now? Or, which one makes sense first? That's kind of where I come in place.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the yes or no, but also the timing of, is it a yes now? Is it a yes for later? Should we be thinking about this right now? What is the focus area? What's the priority? It's a lot of what we do with CFO clients. The same deal is we're doing cash flow planning, and kind of, we don't want to be the buzzkill that's going to tell you no when you want to go buy something. Like, we don't want to do that to you, like a parent with a kid and their toy. Like, no, you don't need that. But sometimes we have to remind people of what their goals and priorities are, and to remind them of the impact of those decisions, because you say, well, if you say yes to this, you are putting off another 2 months before you can hire that worker that you need. So it's about understanding the impact, not just in numbers, but in the decisions you make now. There's an opportunity cost to those decisions. Do you agree?
I completely agree. It's all about what your goal is, and then dissecting that goal.
And being willing to trade. I think when people know the cost of a decision that's not financial. So for example, like I said, I couldn't tell you how many times we tell clients this, you can buy this, but you've said you want to save up to hire that person. So which one is it? Or, if you do this, it's going to set you back, let's say 1 or 2 months. Can you wait that long? No, I can't. Okay. So what are we going to do with the money? Right. So it comes down to these core questions. But I think when you can position them effectively, it really sheds light on, oh, this is what I'm deciding. When I decide this one thing, I've also decided these other things too, by virtue of that. And I know hiring is a big topic, especially for your industry. I feel like I'm assuming that labor cost is the number one cost, maybe besides taxes, but labor cost is probably the number one operational cost of a business. How do you advise folks on how to, do you advise them on compensation structure, roles, like how far do you go with helping them kind of coordinate their organization and hire their talent?
Yeah. Pay structures. There's, 3 different ways most of the time, estheticians are getting paid. And, there's really no wrong or right answer for that. It's what works for you and it's what works for the person that you're hiring. If you're both happy, I think that you got a win-win there. So I definitely, we have got a way to help you break that down. The other thing that I help my customers with is in the hiring process, you got to ask the right questions. You really got to get to know this person. And I, from experience, was hired once when I first got started in the brow business. I was hired to do eyebrows and, I loved it. I was really good at it. The woman that hired me, she started out helping cancer patients figure out how to draw their eyebrows on. And I mean, we just were super passionate about eyebrows. So I got hired for this job. And within the first week of me working there, I had a bikini wax on the schedule. And no one that was there to help me figure out how to do this bikini wax. And I didn't want to let her down. So I did it. And let me just say, that was a horrible experience. And I lost a client because I didn't get the hair or the wax off of her when she left. But no one ever asked me, hey, Emily, can you do a bikini wax? And then if they had, and I said, no, I don't know how to do that. I wasn't trained to do it. If the expectation there of me knowing other services was never brought up. And I think that gets lost a lot of times in the interview process. And then people get kind of thrown to the wolves when they start. And it's just unnecessary. And it kind of can set up a really awesome employee to failure and an unintentional failure. And I just want to help people eliminate that situation because it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. And it puts the staff in a really uncomfortable position when you make those assumptions because they're probably feeling the pressure like you did to just go, yeah, I guess I can do that. But it's going to cost everyone more in the long run. And I mean, and I just have to say, what a high stakes service to do that on. There's tattooing brows, which like is one thing because I'm like, that's kind of scary if you don't know. But that's right up there. I say bikini wax is right up there with what a high stakes situation to kind of wing it.
Yeah, it was quite a mess, no pun intended. And, not only did I lose a client, she was actually the owner's client originally and was a really great client. And she continued to bring us new customers all the time. And that stopped. So there is a high cost when you don't find out, who you're hiring and what their capabilities are. Because if they're not capable, but you love them, you can train them, And so I do put a lot of emphasis on training and communication with my clients. It's a big thing that I do with them too.
Yeah. And this goes back to the cost of decisions, right? Because like I said, with the cash flow example, I think this is a prime example of they made a decision to risk the relationship by kind of setting you up for failure, but by not knowing that you could deliver with absolute certainty the quality of service that's expected, and not your fault, not anyone's fault, right? But it comes down to the poor planning and risking that relationship, which then costs money in opportunity costs. Like we said, that even though, I lost a client, clients are replaceable. However, some clients truly are a lot more valuable because of the fact that they that's an interesting story that they referred other clients in, and now that stopped a pipeline.
Yes.
That's a whole different level. So if you're going to be serving clients who are those types of, we call them lead getters and $100 million leads, Alex Hormozi's book, the lead getters, if you have a series of lead getters for your business, it's what are you doing to make sure they are happy too?
Exactly.
And make sure that you're getting that constant pipeline. That's really interesting too. Yeah. But when it comes to empowering your staff, right? So you've got let's say we align on compensation. We're clear on the staff's goals and we're on the same page. And then we've got, making sure that they're set up for success with proper training. I would love your opinion on this because I actually have a lot of brow studio clients that I've worked with. And I have a lot of salons and spas and things like that. One thing that constantly comes up is, let's just talk about the issue that always happens where the owner is the most in demand person on the schedule, or I want an appointment with owner. And you really, really want them not to do that. You really want them to work with the other artists, the other estheticians, the other staff, which are completely and perfectly qualified. What are some tips you have for the solopreneur or the business owner who just wants to not be the only one who's getting booked all the time or the only one who seems to have a packed schedule?
Well, I've done this before, so I would love to answer this. First of all, you've got to make sure that they are equivalent to your standards, or that they understand your standards of doing the service. And like we've already discussed, that's training, and to empower them with the knowledge that they have to perform these services. You got to do it consistently. And along with that is communicating. I ran into multiple times, my employees, my staff members, my team members, they hated meetings. They hated going to trainings in the beginning. And then once they saw the benefit and they realized, hey, it wasn't a session for me to dump and complain about what they're doing wrong. It ended up becoming a collaboration tool and figuring out how to make things better. And once it clicked that that's what it was, they were empowered. Then at the same time, really creating and maintaining a regular schedule for trainings, not just like on new services, but even refreshers. Every single time we would have a training, we would sell more. Like, it was just amazing. It was like, oh my God, I know, we're getting kind of, this particular service isn't doing so well. This brand isn't really selling that well in retail. We'd do a training and it was through the roof every single time. And that was really important to have established, so that when I did start feeding my clients to these service providers, my clients trusted me and they trusted that they were going to be in good hands. And I made myself available, for the first few times I'd pop in, how's it going? Was always available for feedback, so that we could address anything that wasn't to their liking. And I'm not replaceable. No one is replaceable. But let me say, those clients are still with these other people and they're happy. They did not leave and go to another spa, and it just, I think you got to set it up in the beginning and have that part of your business plan, kind of like your exit strategy. And when you do that, it's easier than you think.
Yeah. And I'll add in, you have to shed your own ego around it. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who like being the person in demand, and it's like, oh, I want to book with Shannon. Okay. Like, that makes you feel good, but you want them to want someone else.
Absolutely.
And that can kind of sting a little bit, where you're going, oh, like, I started this business and I want them to want me. I do kind of want to be the most popular person, but you don't. You absolutely don't.
What can sting too is when they do switch over and then they like the other person better.
And then when you think about it from a business standpoint, I think a lot of my veteran business owners are like, that's the best feeling when I don't have to block my calendar anymore.
Yeah.
That is something they struggle with, though, a lot. And one thing I'll add into that is incorporating them into your marketing. Because I think that when you are the face and when you are in every image, every appearance, every time they see the brand, they see your face, or every time they hear about you, it's your voice. They will associate it with you and basically say, I want her because she's who I bought, because I bought a picture of her, I bought her voice on a podcast, whatever. And I think that's crucial, that you incorporate whoever is actually going to be serving your clients. I say bring them out of the shadows and actually introduce them as part of the team, make them part of the brand, and involve them in the marketing. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, you have to, because you don't know. I mean, maybe you're not intentionally trying to move people over, but let's say you break your arm, or have a baby and you can't go to work, and you got to keep that revenue coming in. What are you going to do? You got to send them to somebody else. And if you don't take care of them in that way, by taking care of your employees and having them be a part of your brand, they're not going to go to you. They're going to end up going somewhere else. So it's highly important that you do that. I like that you brought that up.
Yeah. And let's just say you have that conversation with them and say, I do want to involve you guys in the marketing, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like that's also an expectation to set when you're hiring them, is that, like, we need you to do certain activities along with trainings. Like, you're going to have to be part of the brand photo shoot, or be part of the, some of the posts, or I need to be able to post your work and things like that. Is that what you recommend too, that people kind of like put that out in the open?
I do recommend that. I do think there's a fine line of having your estheticians and your front desk staff become your social media managers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to afford it, I would get a social media manager. but you all do still have to participate. So you got to be strategic in your marketing. All of your estheticians, all of your service providers are going to have Instagram accounts. You want them sharing all of your stuff on there. So you do need to make expectations in the hiring process for your marketing, that it is somewhat required of them to share your brand with other people on their social platform. But just be careful that you're not enforcing them to be your social media market manager. If so, you need to set a time, make it separate from their service hours. It's like a Monday. They do social media management. It's got to be separated.
Yeah, there had to be boundaries on when they're working on it and to what extent, what hours, how much work, right? And if they want to do that, I wouldn't expect them to actually manage the account, but I think it's more like, be in a couple of these videos, make an appearance, and also please share this stuff. I think that a lot of the times what I've seen with people I've worked with is they expect the artists or the estheticians or the service providers to naturally share this stuff. And it's not instinctive. So I think it's important to really lay out there that we really want you to do this and give them clear calls to action on how you want them participating in that as well. What would you say when it comes to staff? I mean, let's talk about for a second the increasing cost of labor, which is really tough. It comes down to, this question comes up a lot with our clients too. It's like, how do we combat, it's more and more expensive to hire good people. We just can't get around it. It's a super big challenge. Would you agree that it's like, I can't control the wages. I know what people are expecting. If you want to hire really good talent, you're going to have to pay really good prices for them. How are you advising clients right now who are going, damn, I'm getting slammed by these wage costs? Are you telling them, hey, maybe we cut back hours? Are you telling them, hey, you just need to manage cash reserves better so you can afford these people? What direction are you kind of seeing a lot of spa owners going in?
Well, I think that they're confused on how to pay them to begin with. And
yeah,
it seems when I first got started, I think we were getting a little bit overpaid. And when I say that, it was strictly commission only back then. And I was getting like a 60% commission and the owner was getting a 40% commission. And our service dollars were lower because the price point was a lower service. So it was kind of okay. But then eventually she realized, okay, this isn't working. I'm not making enough money, and started cutting my commission. And I think it's easier to start it from the other way around, start low and then give them incentives. And what I'm finding is that more and more people, business owners, are doing an hourly plus a commission. Because some people are motivated by money, some people are not. And that's a big thing to empower your staff, find out what motivates them. Sometimes it's not money. But if it is, I like the format of the hourly plus a commission. And it's just in our industry, you're either a booth renter, mostly it's commission only. How do you talk about the wage increase? If you've got a wage increase
commission structure, that's a really valid point, because I see a lot of people on a straight commission basis, and you're absolutely right. They're trying to cut commissions. And I'm like, it's not going to go over that well.
No, increase your prices.
Not for the same amount of work.
Yeah.
They've been getting paid 60%, trying to pay them 50 or 40 at this point. That's really challenging unless you make some other type of concession. But I love the hourly idea, because what that also does, and this is something I've seen before too, is you want them participating in other activities besides the direct to customer, like the hands on the customer. Right?
Yes.
So you want them to be able to help you with training manuals. You want them to be able to help you with operations to some extent. And knowing that they're going to be compensated for that, I think a lot of people can kind of dismiss those activities and say, well, I'm not earning commission on this. So
why would I go to a meeting if I'm not getting paid? Why would I do these follow-up calls for my customers if I'm not getting paid for it? Why am I going to post on your social media if I'm not going to get paid for it? So there is it's great compensation for them to be hourly plus commission. It's still all over the place, but that is the happiest spas I've seen are going that route these days.
I think that's a really valid point. That's something that they've always struggled with. All the clients I've worked with is this commission idea, but then having to come up with almost spot commissions for other activities, like operational activities, internal initiatives, and so on. And I'm like, you now have an entire price menu of the different rates you're paying your staff for whatever activity they're doing. And now they're strategically trying to do higher paying activities. It creates so much complexity. So I love the idea of having some type of base hourly or even just some type of base pay that is guaranteed, that's going to help resolve the issue of them not doing like non-client work and keeping them committed to the brand. I love it. But when it comes to, let's just say when it comes to training and, I guess, this goes in line with that actually. Another activity too is coaching and training each other and training up other artists or other estheticians or other service providers. What are you seeing work well with training? Are you seeing folks that are adopting any sort of like new ways of training their staff? So is it from, I don't know, traditionally, I would assume that a lot of owners are going to say, well, I have to train everybody. I got to do it all my way. I have to take on this whole responsibility. Do you see them kind of like now starting to delegate those types of things downward? And do you think that's a helpful way to manage it?
Absolutely. I think, well, I'm seeing that not only is the owner training, they're utilizing their sales reps, the devices and the brands that they have, they're getting more training for them. Some of these companies, they do charge you for extra training, some don't. So you just got to have to find out, if you're on a budget, try to get all the free trainings you can get. If you can't, maybe like spread them out throughout the year. I've found it best if you're doing a training once a month. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it is so helpful, and it's so important to stay engaged with the material and with the services that you're providing. It just really keeps the momentum of like high energy for these estheticians. The other biggest part of this is just because you're in a training, you got to do something after the training, and you got to allow. Well, I've found that when the estheticians are allowed to practice and give each other treatments when they're, not busy, they're the most successful. It's easier for them to talk about it with the client. They're getting practice hours in on this service. And I don't know how many times I've seen sales go up in a day for a laser service or a microneedling service when an esthetician is walking around with a red burnt face, and they're like, oh my God, what is wrong with your face? And they're like, oh, I just had this treatment done. I'm so excited. And they do before and after pictures, and it causes conversation naturally when they're walking around like this. Yeah. Instead I hear sometimes the business owners will like quarterly, they'll have like a nighttime, session for all of the staff members to come in and practice in, and whatever works for your spa is great. But I just think it's important that you allow them to really do the practicing on each other. And one more thing to kind of add to that I've seen successful is if you do purchase a new piece of equipment, a lot of times you buy $100,000 medical device or just anything, and they'll want to do a sales event right after. And be careful to jump into the sales event. You want to be trained before you do the sales event, but utilize that sales event and do like a demo, offer a free demo during the event. Like, hey, I'm going to do laser on my hand, on your hands. It's like a 10-minute treatment, and you got 100 people signed up, and they're in and out. And that esthetician who's doing the demo gets all that practice before, they're actually doing the service. So practice, practice, practice. Let them do services on each other. Let them get services. Discount their services in their retail. They got to be using the products that they're selling. Those are the ones that succeed.
And what's interesting about this, so if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not even a spa owner, how can this apply to my business? What Emily's describing are all of these different tactics and strategies that you can use to make sure that your staff is empowered to offer the product at a really high quality, product or service at a really high quality through practice and through iterations, basically free, low risk iterations. So now think about this. Like, I know a restaurant owner who does this with the staff. They want to do a new menu or new cocktail. Everybody tries it before it ever goes live. Like, everybody in the staff gets to try it, give their feedback. This is going to sound funny, but I'm going to even go back to what I do, accounting firms. Now you're giving me ideas where I'm like, well, what if we actually got to sit down and do cash flow forecasts for ourselves together? Like, what if we actually got to talk about our own business strategy, our own and we can talk about what's going on before we go live with something. what is it in your business that you can have a sort of inside circle of trying something, iterating, or just kind of getting feedback on, or just, and also empowering, like you said, through training. It's basically training too, where everybody wins and you can lower the stakes, lower the risk of dissatisfaction, increase customer service and quality all at the same time. It's such a great idea.
We would have certain estheticians become ambassadors for a certain brand because, some spas will have 1 or 2 skincare brands, maybe only 1 laser. But then, there are times where there's like 10 different machines, 3 to 5 different types of skincare brands. And we would have 10 estheticians. Each esthetician would become an ambassador for one of those brands. And that was like their favorite thing that they got to work with. That was the thing that they loved about. So if there was an issue, we had a person that we went to, and they were the one that took in all the big information. They got to go, across country and do the special training on that particular brand. And I think that helped a lot with pushing that service even harder to those clients, because there was just like a love. There was more passion for that. And then when you're practicing between service providers, that there was just a skilled person there to really answer those questions. I don't know that I really answered your question, but
No, that's perfect. Emily, so I believe you have a webinar coming up, and I want to make sure everyone gets to register for that if they are in the med spa industry or adjacent to it. I think this is going to be super valuable for them. So can you give our audience some information on where they can find out more?
Yes. So you can email me at emily@spaproject.com, and I will send a registration link to you, or we can email back and forth. I can do a private webinar, or I'll be sending the link out for the group webinar. And this is about, how to kind of the intro to hiring up the perfect esthetician. And you can use this for other service providers as well. But there's just a big focus on the interview process and really creating the job description. And you'll leave the webinar with a full, complete job description template, lots of interview questions to really help you learn about the person that you're going to hire. So I'm excited about it.
Perfect. And what is your email address one more time?
Emily@spaproject.com.
Awesome. Emily@spaproject.com. Guys, just put webinar link in the subject line and she will send that over to you.
Yeah.
Emily, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Everyone says you need to get a bookkeeper, but what good is that if you don't know how to read the financial statements they give you? If you're hesitating to ask questions on your numbers, or you're not even looking at them because you don't know how to turn them into actions, we're now offering an accessible option for you to get the support you need to use your financial statements effectively. It's called the CFO On Demand. You can bring your financials to a call with me or message me privately about what's going on with your business. We will even go over what documents you need to send your tax pro so you feel prepared and confident this tax season. Want to learn more? Head to thecfoondemand.com, and the link is down in the show notes. Again, that's thecfoondemand.com. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.